Roll call, please.
Councilmember Manning.
Here.
Councilmember Dick. Here. Vice Mayor Carlin.
Here.
Mayor Marshall.
Here. If you'll please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have we just came out of closed session and there was no reportable action taken in closed session. Thank you. Moving on to 3.1, proclamations and presentations. We have a proclamation declaring October 2024 as Bullying Prevention Month. I got to tell you, we had a number of years ago, the first time we had an anti-bullying program. We worked with the Livermore Area Youth Advisory Commission, and we had a screening of the film Bully. That was the night that it was the 7th game of the World Series, and it was between with the Giants. And we actually had a full house at the theater, at the Vine Theater, and we had the entire Livermore Area Youth Advisory Commission there helping out. So everybody bailed on the game because they understood the importance of working against bullying in our community. So with that, whereas October is National Bullying Prevention Month, and more than 1 out of every 5 students ages 12 through 18 report being bullied at school during the school year, according to the National Center for Educational Statistics. And whereas the City of Livermore joins the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District and the Livermore Area Recreation and Park District for the 5th year celebrating Unity Day, an annual event with participants nationwide uniting in the commitment to stop bullying and to promote healthier communities through kindness, acceptance, and inclusion. Whereas as civic leaders of Livermore, we can and must use our resources to effect positive changes in our community. And whereas the City of Livermore is committed to engaging the community and creating welcoming and inclusive environments for all, now therefore the City Council of the City of Livermore, in celebration of Unity Day on October 16th of this year, proclaims October 2024 as National Bullying Prevention Month in the City of Livermore to bring awareness to the issue of bullying prevention and to work to create safe and supportive environments for all students and community members. And I will be giving this to Dr. Tori Gibson from the Livermore Joint Unified School District. And welcome to Livermore, by the way. It's great to have you here. Somebody has a camera.
Evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the invitation for this evening. We are very excited for all the activities this week for Unity Week. As an example, today our staff had the opportunity to sign up and take the pledge. We will participate on Wednesday as well as throughout the week. So we look forward to this. And yes, we definitely, this is something that as a school district that is near and dear to us every day, as we want all of our students to feel safe and comfortable when they are at school each day and knowing where to go and what to do. I think one of the biggest bullying issues that, we face in education as a whole is really in relation to cyberbullying. That is often one of our bigger issues. We can control a lot what happens at school, but it's what happens outside of the school day, night, mornings, weekends, that comes back to school. So thank you so much for this. It's an honor to be here. We're loving Livermore and the school district and the community as a whole. It's a wonderful place to live and work. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much. And again, welcome to Livermore. With that, we'll move on to the open forum. This is an opportunity to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda, and the city clerk will talk about the process to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. The City Council's agenda provides opportunities for the public to participate in the meeting by addressing the City Council in the following ways. For non-agendized items, the public has the opportunity during open forum to address the City Council on any item of interest that is within the City Council's subject matter jurisdiction. For agendized items, the public can address the City Council on each item of business it considers when the mayor opens public comment and should be focused on that particular item. Please note, a speaker is not required to answer any questions from the City Council, and the City Council is not required to answer questions from the public. However, the mayor has the discretion to ask staff to address a speaker's comments when a City Council member believes it's relevant to a particular business item. When participating in tonight's meeting, one comment may be given per person per item. For consent calendar items, one comment may be given for all items on the consent calendar. If consent calendar items are pulled for discussion by the City Council, a speaker will be allowed one comment for each item pulled for discussion and a separate comment for the remaining consent calendar. To provide comment, please fill out and turn in a speaker card found at the entrance of the council chambers. Speakers will be announced in the order received. Once public comment opens, each participant's name will be announced and their 3 minutes will begin once the lectern. The mayor will announce the conclusion of the public comment period after comments have been voiced into the record. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, do we have any who wishes to speak at the open forum?
Yes, sir, we do. The first speaker is Donna Caban, followed by Greg Scott, followed by Trish Monroe.
The city manager provides a progress update on any ongoing talks with GAMI officials to obtain GAMI G 100
UL at the airport. LVK now offers UL 94, but unfortunately, not all piston aircraft can use UL 94. Clearly, the most important next step is for Five Rivers Aviation FBO Pete Sandu to offer GAMI, an unleaded aviation fuel that can be used in any plane or aviation fuel tank. GAMI G100UL is FAA approved, insurable, and can be purchased from a distributor in Fresno by the end of 2024. Mr. Sandu says he will offer GAMI by the end of 2025. Why delay a year? The council has the authority to direct the FBO to offer GAMI fuel sooner. At the July 22nd council meeting, the mayor stated that other airports sell leaded aviation fuel. Should we follow their bad example? Regardless of what other airports do, Livermore needs to show leadership and a willingness to protect our children from leaded aviation fuel, which poses a significant health risk to minors living and participating in outdoor activities near the airport. This risk extends to a 1.5-mile radius surrounding the airport. The Air District recently reported LVK has the highest lead emissions of 26 Bay Area airports. Depending on the wind direction, these lead emissions significantly impact Livermore and Pleasanton residents. The council needs to respond to this health risk as urgently and forcefully as you did to the sale of tobacco vaping products. Vaping is a choice teenagers make. In contrast, children living near the airport are marginalized because inhaling leaded emissions is not a choice they get to make. I urge you to direct the city manager to work with GAMI officials and Mr. Sandu to ensure GAMI is available at LVK by the end of 2024. Additional fuel tank costs could be financed through airport infrastructure funds and hangar fees. We need to further reduce the impacts of leaded admissions on the residents of the Tri-Valley as soon as possible. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Greg Scott, followed by Trish Monroe, followed by Lisa Tromovich.
Good evening. I'm Greg Scott. I was homeless in Livermore in the Livermore sphere of influence for 6 years, 9 months, from October 1st, 2015 to late June of 2022. I'm blessed. I've been housed just under 28 months now. I can tell you, Livermore, that the homeless situation in Livermore has gotten much worse in the 28 months that I've been housed. My partner and I are making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, putting them in paper bags and taking them out there because the homeless are very hungry. They're very desperate and getting more desperate. It's been hot. We're taking them water, working on distribution of food out there. The situation is just deteriorating. And I don't understand it because we have a $20 million Citadel in Vineyard 2.0. We've got 17 permanent residents, 2 residence managers, and we're housing 20 temporary positions there, 20 temporary cots. What are the past the 20 supposed to do? We have another 100, 150 at least out there that are unsheltered. In the city council meeting, the one before last meeting, the comment was made here of comparing what Livermore is doing for the homeless compared to the surrounding communities. Yay for what Livermore is doing for the homeless, but what's the relevance of what the surrounding communities are doing? This governance body here has no jurisdiction over the surrounding communities, such as Pleasanton and Dublin. If the argument is that these surrounding communities are not doing enough for the homeless, I would agree with you. Pleasanton, I've watched it for years. They're doing very little for the homeless. The oppression and repression of the police force is just heinous. And I read in the newspaper, Mayor Brown said, you don't see homeless in Pleasanton. Yeah, you don't see homeless in Pleasanton if you don't look, if you're blind. What does she do? She needs a tour of the city she presides over. I'm not giving her a tour because I know how the police in Pleasanton treat the homeless. And the same in Dublin. I watched that too. I watched Dublin police when it was Mayor Halbert, who's now the supervisor Halbert. I've watched police in Dublin hunt down homeless in the reeds of the water drainages like it was some sort of fox hunt. I was just glad it wasn't me. It's a despicable situation out there. And this situation in Livermore, this block by block, who's confiscating items like donated sleeping bags and tents and all from homeless in Livermore. Wow, that's just licensed looting. I don't understand. That's not helping the situation. You know, I'm not a religious person, but I was raised in a Christian household. Taking the belongings from homeless is not Christian. If you think that's Christian, then I suggest you reread the book of Matthew. This is insane.
The next speaker is Trish Monroe, followed by Lisa Tromovich, followed by Ruby Lopez Villarreal.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, staff. I just wanted to really call out the Communications Department for the city for their wonderful explanations and greetings for holidays. We're in the middle, we Jews are in the middle of celebrating or observing Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. We're coming up on Sukkot, Simchat Torah. I know that the city will say something because the city has. And I appreciate that because it makes me feel included. But it also, when I see other holidays, when I see other religions recognized, it informs me and it makes me feel part of a larger, more inclusive community. I really appreciate the work that the Communications Department, I know that's not right, but you get the idea, is doing. I urge them to continue. It's part of what makes Livermore wonderful. Thank you.
The next speaker is Lisa Tromovich, followed by Ruby Lopez Villarreal.
Honorable Mayor and Council, Thank you for having us here for public forum. I'm Lisa Tromovich, a Livermore resident and downtown business owner. I'm here today to quell rumors and misinformation regarding the downtown development that have been circulated to me and others. I'll read you a letter from Steve Lanza, trustee of Chabot Las Positas Community College District, Linda Manalini, president of Eden Housing, Monia Lane, what is her title? CEO of Quest Science Center, and myself, Lisa Tromovich, Executive Director of Spark Theater. We've listed ourselves in alphabetical order by organization name. Dear Mayor Marchand and City Council members, we, the undersigned, support finishing the remaining elements of the City of Livermore's approved plan for the downtown Catalyst site. Veterans Way and Stockman's Park are done. Yay. The L Street parking garage and the expansion of Blacksmith Square are well underway. The community will be well served by focusing on completing the Quest Science Center, Spark Theater, Veterans Park, and Eden Housing affordable workforce housing as approved. We have reviewed the most recent alternative proposal circulated by Joan Sepala that advocates major changes to the approved plan, including building a community center on the Eden Housing parcel. The plan includes relocating cultural facilities with substantial changes to their size and design, which would not accommodate specific programming objectives. The proposed plan has not been embraced by the organizations cited. We believe it is in the best interests of Livermore and the stakeholder organizations to stay the course and expedite completing the current approved vision. Sincerely, Steve Lanza, Chabot Las Positas Community College District Trustee Area 7, Livermore. Linda Mandolini, Eden Housing, President and CEO. Monia Lane, Quest Science Center, CEO and Board Chair. Lisa Tromovich, Spark Theater, Executive and Artistic Director. I have copies of the letter, which I'll leave with the clerk for, and one for the city clerk in case it was needed. Thank you.
Thank you. So what you're saying is, in other words, it's simply, at this point, it's just an idea. It's not a plan.
Correct.
It's not a plan at all. It's
We
never
have
been.
not those of us that are already engaged with the city have not in any way agreed to be a part of it or suggested any changes to it.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
The last speaker is Ruby Lopez Villarreal.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members and staff. I'm Ruby Lopez Villarreal, Executive Director at Livermore Downtown Inc. For anybody who may not be aware, I will let you know Livermore Downtown Inc. is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the economic health and vitality of downtown. We stand by our vision mission, which I'd like to share because I feel that it represents what I'll say next. Our vision is Livermore Downtown Inc. is committed to keeping the heart of Livermore strong so the entire community can thrive. Our mission is through partnerships, LDA advocates for our downtown business community by promoting economic growth, preserving our heritage, attracting tourism, and fostering an environment where families want to live, work, and play. With that said, we are the advocates for our downtown business families. We wholeheartedly support and agree with Lisa, and we support our original plans. We hope that we can proceed with those. We believe that it's crucial to move forward as intended without any further delays. These delays not only impact our city, but also negatively affect our downtown businesses, which are the livelihoods for many families in our community. Some are represented here this evening as well. Continued postponements will only hinder progress that stands to benefit our downtown and the families that depend on it. So we urge you to proceed with our original plans that are in place, and they will strengthen our downtown and our entire community. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And by the way, whatever the collaboration was between you and Livermore Valley Arts for the Art Walk, what a great time downtown. That was a great event.
And that concludes public comment.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for all your comments tonight. I'm going to close public comment period. One question with regards to the GAMI fuel, that is not available anywhere in the state of California. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question. It seems that the fuel is beginning to become available in certain areas. We're monitoring the situation very closely to see if that is in fact the case. And we'll be reaching out to the providers to gather some additional information and make it available as soon as possible.
Well, so I also understand that ASTM, the American Standards of Testing, has not accepted any of the formulations of GAMI fuel, so that it cannot be manufactured. There's no standard formula for it. So at this point, it can't be franchised. Is that your understanding as well?
Again, we're monitoring the situation. We were told that there's one airport that is looking at the provision of the gamma fuel. So we're trying to gather some additional information on that to understand what in fact is available to that airport and what could be available to us as well.
Okay, so the staff is continuing to follow this as closely as possible to make it available if it ever becomes available, as soon as it becomes available.
That is correct,
Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, moving on to the consent calendar. Is there anyone that wishes to pull any items for consent? Councilmember Branning.
I'd like to pull item 5.4.
5.4, let's see, that is the
Active
transportation plan. Okay, excellent. Okay. Let's go ahead and consider that, and then we can have a motion for the rest of them. Well, yeah, we'll do that. Okay, so 5.4. Questions, comments?
Sounds good. Just a couple of things that I think staff has clarified most of it in the supplemental, but I just wanted to pull it to make sure it's clear. So we had commenters reach out, as well as the Planning Commission had comments on the active transportation plan. I just wanted to check with staff, the intent, this is a supplemental, it's not a rewrite of our active transportation plan, correct?
Hi, Paul Spence, your Assistant City Manager. That's correct. We're in the midst of updating our general plan, and once the general plan is complete, that will be the appropriate time to do a thorough update. So this is just a supplemental.
All right, so in this, we're not looking at major changes in the plan currently.
Correct.
So I just wanted to make sure that as we're moving this item, that it is with the amendments presented in the supplemental. So I'm not sure, this might be a question for our city attorney. Because they came in the supplemental package, should we make a separate motion for 5.4?
Councilmember Branning, this is your city attorney, J.S. Longcalla. Traditionally, when it's in the supplemental packet, that would be part of the council's motion if you move staff's recommendation.
All right, perfect. So that was it. I just wanted to clarify, we did make some changes. It's mostly grammatical changes and some very minor items, but just to clarify a few things in there. So I suppose if there's nothing else,
okay,
I will move the entire package.
Okay,
If there's not. Oh, okay.
Yes, so is there any public comment on the consent calendar?
Yes, Mayor, there is. For item 5.6, we have Greg Scott.
Okay.
Greg Scott, I read from a internet site, calmatters.org. The article is California fails to track its homelessness spending or results. A new audit says, this is from April, it's about a state audit. The summary, there's so little data available, it's impossible to even tell if several of California's largest homelessness programs are working, according to a statewide audit released Tuesday. This is in April. Exactly how much in California is California spending to combat homelessness, and is it working? It turns out no one knows. That's the result of much anticipated statewide audit released Tuesday in April, which calls into question the state's ability to track and analyze its spending on homelessness. The state doesn't have current information on the ongoing costs and results of its homelessness programs because the agency tasked with gathering that data, the California Interagency Council, the one in regard to this 5.6, the California Interagency Council on Homelessness has analyzed no spending past 2021, according to the report by State Auditor Grant Parks. 3 of the 5 state programs the audit analyzed, including the state's main homelessness funding source, didn't even produce enough data for Parks to determine whether they were effective or not. The audit also analyzed homelessness services in San Jose and San Diego, finding both cities failed to thoroughly account for their spending on or measure the success of much of their programs. The lack of transparency in our current approach to homelessness is pretty frightening. Assemblyman Josh Hoover, a Republican from Folsom, who co-authored the request for the audit. This means the state policymakers have little data to go on when they make funding decisions related to what has become one of California's most dire challenges. The state of California spent $24 billion in the fiscal years previous to this year on homelessness, and they can't account for it. That was in it's 9 agencies running 30 programs. Only two of those 30 programs had adequate records. So how do you measure the effectiveness? The state auditor's findings highlight the significant progress made in recent years to address homelessness at the state level, including the completion of a statewide assessment of homeless programs. That's what the Interagency Council on Homelessness wrote when they haven't adequately assessed their accounting in an email statement. But it underscores the need to continue to hold local governments accountable. We're primarily responsible for implementing these programs and collecting data on outcomes that the state can use to evaluate its programs. We have here on 5.6, $280,000 for 3 units. That'd be $90,000 a unit. It'd be interesting to see more of this accounting here. As the homelessness crisis intensified, California Governor Gavin Newsom's leadership allocated an unprecedented $24 billion. Well, the legislature passed a bill to account for that money, and guess who vetoed it? Governor Newsom.
That concludes public comment.
We're going to close the public comment period on the consent calendar. I wanted to point out one thing on 5.4, the Active Transportation Plan. Full implementation of that plan is $260 million. The general fund for the city of Livermore last budget was $147 million. So this is an aspirational plan. It's going to take place over a number of years. But I believe there were some public comments on that, and I received an email from Mr. Smith about those were going to be included in the final documents. So with that, I will take your motion. Motion made by Councilmember Branning, seconded by Councilmember Kick. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Passed unanimously. Thank you all very much. Moving on to public hearing 6.1, the hearing to introduce an ordinance and waive the first reading, amending the Livermore Development Code definition of public and quasi-public.
Honorable Mayor Marchand and members of the City Council, this is your City Manager, Mariana Marasheva. Your public hearing tonight is going to be presented by Steve Stewart, Special Projects Coordinator in the Community Development Department. Mr. Stewart.
Honorable Mayor, before we do that part, I just wanted to note, I apologize that the presentation in front of you doesn't work, but it's in your packet and it's also available in your folders on your surfaces. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Marchand, members of the council. As Mariana said, I'm Steve Stewart, Special Projects Coordinator in the Planning Division. Tonight, we're presenting a proposal for a development code amendment that would add emergency shelters and supportive housing to the list of permitted uses or conditionally permitted uses associated with a quasi-public or public use. And we'll add that right into the definition. So the proposal before you this evening is consistent with and implements the city's 5-year strategic plan, a safe community that thrives, by implementing Goal 7 to expand and preserve the supply of affordable housing opportunities. And the intent's also to address homelessness and affordable housing shortages, facilitate diversifying the city's housing supply by allowing these types of uses to operate on a permanent basis, allowing a variety of housing types with essential, often wraparound services, and then implement the latest housing element by keeping our code current and expanding the opportunities for a greater variety of housing types.
The current definition does not include emergency shelters or supportive housing listed under the public and quasi-public uses that are shown there on the slide are listed. The amendment shown is in underline there and would again add emergency shelters and supportive housing associated with one of those uses listed in the definition itself. So all public and quasi-public uses would continue to be subject to planning commission review and approval at a public hearing of a conditional use permit. That would ensure proposals are consistent with the general plan and also ensure land use compatibility. So expanding the opportunity for emergency shelters and supportive housing to locate on sites with these types of uses is consistent with the general plan, specifically the most recent housing element to diversify housing opportunities for a variety of income levels. And the Planning Commission and staff are recommending approval of the code amendment. And that concludes the presentation. We're available for questions.
Okay, is there any public comment?
Yes, sir, we do. We have Greg Scott.
Greg Scott. Well, to get emergency shelter to so many homeless, that'd be a good thing. And affordable housing. The question is the costs. You keep pouring a lot of resources in for a few. One example here, I think it's been mentioned tonight, is Eden Housing. You're trying to afford affordable housing. You've got the executive director of Eden Housing making $326,000 a year base salary, another $100,000 on top of that. And 16, 17 executives in a so-called nonprofit, Eden Housing, taking home over more than $3 million, more than 40% of the payroll. What is the lowest person paid in Eden Housing make, and what do they do for housing? How do they afford housing? Anything over 30% of gross income is cost burden. That's the problem with affordable housing, is the cost burden. So how do you make these people competitive? What's competitive? That competitive is capital velocity in this market. How do you make them capital velocity? How do you compete against, the banner over there is Blackstone Global. Blackstone Global has $1 trillion in assets, 1,000 units. Blackstone Global has 1/3 of all the single family housing units in California. How do you compete against that? You don't address the costs, and it just rises and rises. So you're not addressing the basic. And in the housing crisis, homelessness is the most complicated because it needs wraparound services, but a lot less complicated is affordable housing. And you're only addressing a small part of that, because how do you make these people competitive? You've got to make them competitive in the financial world. And you're not doing that. How can labor compete against these housing costs? Two of you went to a gala in Pleasanton that I attended. And a speaker got up there and said his 23-year-old daughter just moved out of the house and got a place to live in Pleasanton. Well, let's do the math on that. What does a rental cost in Pleasanton? Okay, and that has to be no more than 30% of income. So what is that 23-year-old making? Let me see, $2,000 a month would be a low rent in Pleasanton. So she's making $36 an hour. How many jobs are there full-time for 23-year-olds at $36 an hour? I've been asking that question a lot of people in that age group. They look at me like I'm a spider from Mars. I mean, if she's got a place in Pleasanton that she can afford, she's 1 out of 100. She's 1 out of 200. Is she 1 out of 500? We're not speaking in reality when the costs come into play.
That concludes public comment.
Okay, questions, comments from the city council? Councilmember Branning?
Yeah, I just had a quick comment, I think. So looking at this, I think that's a great use. I think it's a great amendment. It definitely will help make more space available. One thing though that kind of came to mind with this is their CUP process can be a little bit pricey. and a little bit long sometimes. Part of that is the nature of the CUPs, but I'm hoping we can look at that as we come up in maybe the next fee study. Because I would like to see if there's a way we can bring that down, especially where it's affecting nonprofits. I know we can't differentiate businesses, but just generally across the board, making it a little more streamlined, a little bit less expensive. I think that'll help us see some of these projects come through the finish line.
Through the mayor, Councilmember Branning, thank you for your comment. We'll take this into account, and as we embark on the next fee study, we'll take a look and see what could be done. Thank you.
All right. Perfect. Thank you very much. And I suppose to the last speaker, just a comment. When we say affordable housing, when we're talking about in this context, does that generally have a income requirement to qualify, a cap on rent? He mentioned 30%. Would that sound accurate?
Yes, that supportive housing typically has income levels associated with it.
Perfect. So typically a person in supportive housing will pay, generally, I believe it is a cap of up to 30% of their income most of the time, which this will allow more housing in that of that variety. So that's all. Thank you.
Okay, any additional comments, questions? Okay. With that, I'd be willing to entertain a motion.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Kick, seconded by Vice Mayor Carling. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstained? Okay, very good. That passes. Moving on to second here. 7.1, this is matters for consideration. This is discussion of the direction regarding city council compensation. I'd like to lead this with the fact that the city council has not had a raise in 17 years. And I think it's time that we at least consider that. So.
Mayor Marchand and members of the city council, this is once again your city manager, Mariana Marisheva. Item 7.1 is going to be presented by our city clerk, Debbie Elam, from her seat. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I am Debbie Elam, your city clerk, and tonight's item before you is regarding City Council compensation. At the September 9th City Council meeting, Council directed staff to agendize an item regarding City Council compensation to allow for discussion. For some background, City Council compensation is generally set by the California Government Code, which determines base pay for elected officials based on population size. Locally, Livermore has a voter-approved measure, Measure W, that was passed November 14th, 2014. Measure W is more restrictive than the government code and setting council compensation at $1,070 per month for council members, $1,490 for the mayor with no city benefits. This compensation has been in effect since 2007. Measure W regulates increases to city council in several ways. Increases cannot occur more than once every 2-year election cycle. Compensation can only be increased by the change in consumer price index or 5%, whichever is less. Multi-year raises are not allowed. And city council cannot approve a raise during a current term. But since city council has staggered terms for 2 council members and the mayor every cycle, this allows for a raise to occur for all council members and the mayor after the new members are sworn in after the election. This is a chart showing the comparison of what city council could be receiving. So the very first column is the current compensation. The second column shows what amount it would be if the council received a 5% raise every year, 2-year cycle. The next column shows what it would have been if there was a 5% increase every 2 years as effective of Measure W. The next column shows what the California Government Code has, right? It's showing what the proposed increase is. And a 5% raise for city council members would be $53.50 a month. And for the mayor, it would be $74.50 a month. Regionally, and as well as in the Tri-Valley, Livermore is one of the lowest compensated city councils, as shown here. In order to approve a 5% raise or CPI, whichever is lower, city council must enact an ordinance, which is being recommended tonight. Tonight, we're requesting to introduce an ordinance. At the next meeting, we'd like to adopt an ordinance, and it would take effect 30 days after the meeting, which is in time to receive a raise after the new council comes in effect in December. In order to change Measure W, a measure would need to be placed on a future ballot and receive voter approval. So staff's recommending the city council introduce an ordinance and waive the first reading, amending section 2.04.030 compensation limits for mayor and city council members of the Livermore Municipal Code to adjust the monthly compensation for mayor and city council members consistent with Measure W. And staff's available for questions.
Very good. Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, sir, we do. Let me shift gears here. The first speaker is Trish Monroe, followed by Lisa Tromovich.
Good evening again, Mayor, City Council members, and city staff. I just want to give my strongest support for this. It has been long a problem to have a pay that keeps those who are not either independently wealthy, retired, or otherwise have a good income. It makes it much more difficult for those people to be able to run for office and to have to juggle the necessity of likely full-time jobs, perhaps families, and council duties, which are extensive. This at least gives a move in the right direction. It's not enough, but it's what we can do right now. I urge you to accept this. Thank you.
The next speaker is Lisa Tromovich.
Hi, I 100% concur with Trish Monroe. It's shocking. It's just shocking that we have, I think, one of the best city councils and staff, and the relationship between the two has been so amazing. Based on my experience and what I've heard about other councils in other towns, you guys are the best. And for you to be the lowest appreciated is just really inappropriate. I'm so proud of your work and your work together. And I've been so impressed by the amount of information that you are required to ingest in order to properly vote on things. And I think we've been very lucky to have the last few years some really fantastic councils. Years just not enough for our community to show some level of appreciation for the work that you do. And the low salary may also prohibit people who are parents who might incur babysitting costs if they were to run and have to attend meetings and other subcommittee meetings and everything else, or hourly workers who might have to lose work in order to prepare for a meeting, as you all well know. But I want you to know, at least a few of us have noticed. And thank you. And I strongly encourage and applaud any movement in the right direction to compensate you more fairly. Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to close the public comment period, bring it back to the council. Any discussion, questions, comments by the council?
So many.
Pardon me?
A lot, but
Okay.
I'll let other.
Go for it. Go for it.
So one of the first things that I asked about when I was elected was, what are the rules around pay? And I was educated very quickly that as a city that is a general law council manager government city, we don't really control the pay, the state does. There's not a whole lot we can do as a general law city. This is the very, very bare minimum, especially with the fact that we put in place Measure W in the past to make us more restrictive than other cities. Without an amendment to become a charter city, we will never reach fair compensation levels similar to other county bodies. So as you know, we are here every 2 weeks-ish, sometimes more, to discuss general matters and vote on items. I don't even know the number. It's an extensive number of county bodies that we serve on as well. When I ran for council in 2020, it was Zoom times, and I was able to be in many places at once, which allowed me to be home with my children while I was attending a meeting, which now takes place in Tracy. So on a Tuesday afternoon, I would generally need to be gone anywhere between 2 and 5 hours. No idea how long that would be in the middle of a work day, in the middle of school day and pickup. Luckily, John loves going to all of these meetings and he's taken on almost all of my responsibilities. If you see at the end of these packets, there's a long list of everything John does and everybody else does, and my name is never on there. And that is fully intentional and on purpose because I physically cannot be at work full time and pick my kid. Last couple years feeling like I'm not doing my job. I wasn't elected to make John do it. I was elected to take full part. And so I had every hope and an aspiration that we would learn so much from COVID and allow ourselves to be a virtual society that allowed parents and people with disabilities to fully participate. And that just didn't happen. We can't control that. What that means, though, is that I need to make a decision to no longer participate in an official way because it's just physically not possible. And then financially, with $12,000 as our pay, I can't have a part-time job to make that up. I am lucky that I pay what is considered for a lovely place. But that luckily, you know, there's a point in our lives with 2 full-time jobs that we are paying about 30% of our income. But when we first moved to Livermore, and this is a story I told on an Eden Housing podcast, actually. The only reason we ended up in Livermore, and like I said during the election, I loved Livermore. I just really wanted to live here. That was a really good thing to say in an election. The reality is, I found one apartment that would allow us to move in, even though we made only 2 signer, not having generational wealth and families that co-signed with us. We had one unit that just said, your income is okay and you have pretty good credit, so we'll let entire East Bay that would take us. And so what I think is so important that links this and this other housing conversation is that one unit of housing, that one landlord who now is owned by a large corporation and their rent is up very high and you need to pay 3 times the rent. At the time when I moved here, I was given a unit of housing, which I think provided the community more than just a neighbor. Because I feel like I have now for those opportunities for people that don't make the standard general income of what you think is good enough to be your neighbor. You do provide different opportunities. And I hope that I can be an example of what might happen when you let someone be a part of a community that may not have fit in otherwise based on their income. So I think this is a great first step. But as soon as I'm on the other side, I think I will be an advocate for Livermore moving in a direction of maybe a charter city. We are on this Berkeley, where they have city council members that make $70,000 and have a full vote as someone who has a full-time job and a full-time staff to support them. And so I think that's wonderful for them. But I think if we are given the same weight in making decisions for our entire county, we need to come just a little bit closer in compensation. Otherwise, you know, we've been so lucky. I will say though, as a city, in that although you know, there's this idea that it's Bob Warner would say, "Who knew you'd become close with one of these old white guys on council?" And the reality is we've had older retired individuals who have put a lot of their time and care and effort into our community that are here for the community, that aren't here for other political gains, or you'll see a lot of other communities have a lot of folks who have real estate interests because it's a very flexible job. And they have to have a flexible. You may see in some cities some conflict of interest when you're a job that pays your bills and the job that you're doing at night are very, very educate the public on what it means to be of service and what it means to have fair compensation. We just did our reviews of our staff, and it's comical to think that we're looking at approving salaries in over 6-figure ranges, who very much deserve it comfortably. But it's a little bit comical if you were to put who is like in power, and you put all of our salaries together, and we're not even close to like a quarter of what we're paying our executive staff. So it's a little rambly, but I appreciate that this was brought up, and I look forward to seeing Livermore continue to move in the direction. I think we do a great job of not just speaking, but of actually acting towards the direction of equity and inclusion and progress. And so we've been fighting about giving housing to people to get to that point for so long that we can't focus on these other things. So I'm so excited for us to move forward and be able to focus on how do we have a city that has not only that as their mission and their policy, but as their actual action and what this council looks like. So looking forward to seeing a lot of our downtown business owners who maybe might someday have flexibility be able to be on council as well, because you could have a part-time or flexible job if there was a decent salary. So that's all.
Thank you very much for your very personal perspective there. So thank you for that. Any additional questions, comments? Councilmember Branning.
That's a tough one to follow, so I'm not going to say much, but I would ask, given everything that was just said and the disparity we have right now, I'd like to ask that this item be brought back to us again. So not to replace the current one, but that this be brought back to us again at the beginning of the year to affect 2 years from now, I suppose, as well.
Through the mayor, yes, Councilmember Brenning, we could incorporate this item into the master calendar and make sure that it returns in about 2 years.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I was going to make some sort of snide comment, but I won't. Because
you said it.
well, you know, when you were talking about old white guys in government that that serve the community for really because they love the community and not for any personal gain, I was going to quote Groucho Marx and say, I resemble that remark.
Yes.
Okay, so with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll move staff recommendation.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Carling. Second.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, seconded by Councilmember Branning. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passed unanimously. Thank you all very much. Folks in the gallery, thank you all for your comments tonight. Okay, with that, we go to matters initiated and council reports. Councilmember Branning.
Sure. It's been very busy. October is always quite the month. My plea, I suppose, to the nonprofits is spread this out a little bit more. There's a lot of things you saw on my calendar that I already put in. I just want to highlight that really one of the greatest things about the city, though, is the fact that we get to do so many things. I want to give a special shout out to Flacas, because just as an idea out of kind of the blue of hosting a community event in the alley next to her work. Mm-hmm. Like, why not? And then now there was, you know, a dozen or so vendors there selling local goods, really showing off their craft. Like, that's an amazing thing. And on that day, there was, I think, 5 other events throughout the day. That weekend had about 9 or 10 events total. I didn't make it to all of them, but just the amount and variety of things that we have to do in Livermore is always amazing. Again, just spread them out a little bit from October. It seems every time we get to this time of year, and October is so stressful. So it has been great. I really appreciate everything everyone is doing. Like I said, went to a lot of things in the last few weeks, and it was absolutely wonderful.
Councilmember Kick.
I didn't do anything official. But
did you do anything fun?
I did.
That's the big thing. Okay.
I did. So October is still going to be busy as we continue on. But I was very lucky to, and this is, I'll miss it the most. Maybe they'll have me back as a non-city council member, but I had the invite and pleasure of going to Junction K-8 school, where my children go, and presenting to the library what it means to run a local government. So they're in 4th grade, learning about state government, and in 3rd grade, they're learning about local government. I presented to both classes for like a 40-minute lesson about budgeting, which is really kind of what we do up here. So they needed to choose, would they like to fund? They only had 10 little, manipulatives. They asked if they could count them as $1,000 each, because they guessed that we might have a budget of $10,000. and I said, go ahead, they can equal whatever you want. Would they like to fund the library or the trash? And I've done this activity with Girl Scouts in first grade. And every time I've done this activity with Girl Scouts, they choose the library because that's more fun than trash and public works, right? Because they don't really have that concept. But it was very insightful to watch these third and fourth graders immediately split things up and give more money to the public works and maintenance and trash collection without any prompting from me. Their answers ranged from things like, well, gas is very expensive and there's a lot of houses and a lot of trucks. So if you do that math, it's probably going to cost more. Great. Didn't have to prompt that. We had multiple groups of students without any prompting decide to take their 10, give a few here, a few there, and then put a few in a savings account that they created for themselves. I didn't tell them to do that or ask them to do that, in which case I got to brag that actually your city has quite a lovely reserve policy and we are very proud to be in a good financial situation. And the most fun fact that blew their minds is that all they'd have to do to be on city council one day was be 18 and registered to vote and win an election. But that there was no test or degree required, but rather an interest level and passion. And it was also fun to share the fact that they were speaking to the youngest ever elected. And that made them feel very strange because I was very old to them. So I'm really hoping that in about 8 to 10 years, depending on each of these kids, that we'll see some of them up here. So that was very cool. And their level of insight and interest into what the city does in a 30-minute presentation was pretty fantastic. So that was the keystone of my week for sure.
Excellent. And one of the things that really rattles their cage is when you tell them after they divided all the money, say, okay, now in the city budget, 50%, 5 of those coins go into public safety, police and fire. And now everybody else has to fight over those last few pennies.
You know, they also were, I walked them through the scenario of, well, your library is very upset at you because you didn't give enough money to the library. And there were some suggestions of how we could make the librarian feel better. Maybe we buy her a special book or tours. And in the scenario, we were talking about how some things are passed down from the state government. We have to do certain things. We can't choose to not pick up trash. It's not a choice. And even if it was, it would be a bad one. And one of the students who was very focused on that said, I would tell Ms. Garcetti, to take it up with the governor. It's not. So, you know, they understand there's all different kinds of levels of government and are placing their blame in lots of different places already.
Well, during the Great Recession, we did that very exercise here. We took it out to a lot of the schools where we worked with adults. You talk about a fight on your hands when you told everybody after they divided all their money that they had to take 25% of the coins out. They got really upset. You remember there, Paul. We still have the scars to prove it. All right, well, great. Well, thank you so much. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thanks. Building a little bit on what Councilmember Ranning mentioned about Livermore and what we have to offer our residents. I was pleased to represent the mayor. He was I'm sure he'll tell you he was in Japan the last week or so. At a ribbon cutting for the Ascend Clinic out near Costco. They've just opened up this clinic and they work with kids 0 to 18, although most of the kids there are 0 to 3 on speech therapy and occupational therapy. A lot of autism kids go there. But again, it's to me, another representation of what the city offers to our residents and the breadth of things they have. Not only all the fun things to do, but also the meaningful things that provide help and assistance to parents. In this case, you know, with kids that are struggling either with speech or maybe just simply walking and movement, that kind of thing. So Ascend Clinic has moved to town and they were in Pleasanton, but they were running out of space there. So they got a very, very nice location out near Costco. So I went to that luncheon last week. This is an annual event. It's just great seeing all those folks there that put in a daily job, 8-hour shift and keep this place safe and secure and clean and so on and so forth. But again, it's really a nice recognition for the folks that are employed in this community. Saturday was the great compost giveaway and I took advantage of that and very nice, well organized. Again, Livermore Sanitation does that and is well organized. Later that day, I did a Bikes and Brews, which is a nonprofit. Kim Curtis and her husband Daniel were there as well. They rode the same ride that I did. And again, it's a non for kids. And again, a great event. Again, reaching out to our community. I also went to family night sponsored by the St. Mary's Orthodox Church, which is out on L Street. And I frankly didn't know very much about this. Again, they were very disappointed the mayor wasn't there. So,
Haven't missed one of their events yet.
yeah, well, apparently
That's the first one.
That's what I keep hearing or heard. Ms. Monroe said earlier about the diversity of people that we have living in our community. This is a small church that draws people from all over the Bay Area, but these people that go to that church are all from a town in India. I just think it's remarkable. And we offer that opportunity for the people here in our community. And I think that's just terrific. It was out of the Dublin High School and they had, unfortunately, I couldn't stay for it, but they were doing this wonderful, it was called a family night, but it was really about kids entertaining, kids and adults, of course, entertaining the families that were there. It was just terrific. I really enjoyed that. And then
It's a great talent show.
yes, I'm sure it is. I've done the API talent show at the same location. And again, it's great. And then last night, several of us that are on the dais up here were at the Goodness Village Spaghetti Dinner. And again, this is Kim and Daniel raising money again for a terrific cause here in our own community, housing formerly homeless. These people are no longer homeless, as Kim pointed out to us last night out there at Crosswinds Church. So again, a great event, a good time to help support another worthy cause in our community. So thank you very much.
We're all busy. There's a lot of stuff going on. And as I said, most of my stuff I reported out already, but a few of the highlights. I'm always astonished at the amazing things. You know, anybody listens to me that you hear about all the superlatives that we have, the oldest wine region, the oldest light bulb, and all these great things. Well, we also have the oldest parachute club in America. It was, I had no idea, you know, but we had a ribbon cutting for Elevation, the airport restaurant. They were originally scheduled to have their ribbon cutting on March 18th, 2020.
Yeah.
We all know what happened on March 16th, 2020. The world as we know it ceased to exist. So we finally, after all these years, had the ribbon cutting. They're a member of the chamber. And I was working with some other folks and they said, well, this is the oldest parachuting club in America, was established here in Livermore in 1956. So, well, yeah, let's celebrate that. You know, so we had a celebration for that as well at Elevation LVK. On September 29th, we had the Altamont Cruiser Car Show. It's a free car show in the downtown, and what an absolute riot that is. There were over 790 cars registered for this. It's a free car show. Some of these car shows are absolute works of art. They're just amazing. Everything from muscle cars. There was the mayor gets to award 2 mayor's car awards, and one of them was to a 1929 Model A wood-sided like station wagon. It was they found it in an apple orchard in Marin County, but it was a 1929 Woody. It was just amazing. The workmanship on that was incredible, and they've donated over $1 million. This is the 34th car show, I believe. They've donated over $1 million back to community nonprofits. So another great event. We had the Water Resources Division was recognized for Water Professionals Week. That's something that's near and dear to my heart, as all of you know. But we recognize the great work that's being done by all of the water professionals, water, wastewater, that keep our environment and our drinking water clean and safe to drink. As the Vice Mayor mentioned, I was a participant in the Livermore Yotes-Kaido Sister City Cultural Exchange. And there were 20 7th graders that made their trip to Yotes-Kaido and actually went to junior high where they attended school in Yotes-Kaido. And it was a revelation for a lot of them. One of the things that they do at the school is every day there are these drying racks that you see, and every day they take the rags on the drying racks and they wipe down the floors. Imagine trying to do that in Livermore schools. But they take great pride in what they do for the school. They have 2 sets of shoes. They wear 1 set outside and they wear another set of shoes in the school. So it's a wonderful exchange program. All the kids just had a wonderful time. It was an amazing event. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, Art Walk was in the downtown this last weekend, where we had a number of artists taking over the downtown, and it was just the depth and breadth of the artistic expression in the community. It really was amazing. And then there was a concert that night at Shea Plaza, where they had a light show and music. It was quite a remarkable evening. And as the Vice Mayor mentioned, the Bikes and Brews Festival downtown, where it's another great cause. So a lot of folks doing a lot of great work. And Goodness Village, the spaghetti feed, another great evening. So it just comes down to, we have so much diversity and so many great people doing great things in our community that all of us up here are extraordinarily proud to represent everyone in this community that does such great work for everybody else. So thank you all very much. With that, I will adjourn to the next meeting, which is October 21st, special meeting, and the regular meeting on October 28th. Thank you very much.